Hello everyone, this is the Nameless One, and tonight we will be doing Creator Roundup Game Devs. Probably one of the lesser known and underappreciated categories of creator. Um, for our introduction today, I think I'm going to have you guys tell us who you are, what you make, I guess what game. And then after that, the icebreaker question will be, what's your favorite game engine? Because I feel like you guys probably have bones to pick with several of them. And we will start with Saf. Just give me a second to remind everybody. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, follow on Twitch, all that good stuff. Check out the links in the description for all of the devs that I have up right now, as well as links on how to support the channel further. Other than that, Saf, go ahead.
Hello there. I'm Sapphire Sistrine. I am the team lead and co-owner of Valiant Studios, which is developing Dimensional Shift, a first-person sword fighter Metroidvania game. It's kind of sci-fi. And my personal choice on game engine, at least for this game, is going to have to be Unreal Engine 4.
Okay. Ansys.
Hello, I'm Ansis. I guess my main project is Ashes of Equestria. I'm a lead programmer for it. It's the Fallout Equestria, the video game, or wannabe. So open world 3D action RPG, yada yada. But also another thing I do for pony games in this fandom is I try to gather and highlight them. I volunteer at Galacon, a pony convention in Germany. Not this year, but usually I do, and I try to find pony games and exhibit them at the games room of the con. This year, a friend of mine will be doing that, and he will do it. And and I guess the engine, Unity. For me, it's Unity.
Okay. Priscillion.
Hello, I'm Procelion, although in pony circles you'd probably know me better as Lightning Stripe. That's what I go by on pony websites. Been a solo game dev for about 4 years now. I've started developing a game that isn't public as of yet, but it is a side-scroller platformer, very much in the realm of things like Mega Man, very much taking after Mega Pony. It's kind of a spiritual successor there. I have done all of my games in an engine called Pixel Game Maker MV, which is made by the same people who developed RPG Maker, I believe. So that is the engine of choice for my games.
And Scarlet.
Hi, I'm Scarlet Fury. Most of you probably know me as a YouTuber or a musician, so you're probably wondering, wait, why are you on a game dev stream? And truth is, I dabble in the realm of game dev kind of in the background. I haven't released any official projects yet, aside from a mod for the game of World of Goo. You probably, if you're a fan of World of Goo, you've probably seen me around on goofans.com back in the day. That site's not quite as active anymore, but it's kind of picking up pace again now that the game devs for World of Goo have announced a sequel to the game after 15 years. But so I worked on a mod there called Earth of Goo, the GUI Part 2, although now I've just shortened it to Earth of Goo. As far as pony games, I have not worked on any particularly pony-related games. I want to at some point, but I'm very fresh to this, so this is going to be interesting. As far as game engine of choice, I've only been working on one personal solo game dev project in the background, and I've been using Game Maker Studio 2.
Okay. So, for our first question, what we're going to start with is as game devs, what's probably one of the most challenging things that you guys run into, be it engine problems or anything along that lines? And we will start with Procelion.
Figuring out where all those bloody bugs are coming from. It is the most annoying thing in the world when you build a game, you've got it all set to go, you post it, and then there's that one annoying bug that you happen to overlook that completely breaks the game. And I've had that pop up a few times when I've been doing game jams, which is, for a time-sensitive event, that is not the kind of problem you want. So that's the biggest problem, I think, for my process.
Okay.
It's just figuring out what is causing the problem.
Fair.
Imagine that's a pretty universal experience for most of the actual code monkeys.
Yep.
Yeah. A very close second would be character dialogue.
Oh, goodness.
Answers. Same question.
For me, the hardest problem is other people. So project management, relationships with team members, making sure everybody knows what to do and is happy doing it, and making sure everybody holds the same vision of the game, and so people don't work at cross purposes. All that stuff. Project management, people management, HR, all these soft skills, those are the hardest.
Makes
Understandable.
sense. Scarlet.
So I'm kind of in a unique position because in terms of college, I've had quite a bit of coding experience just from engineering, so it's kind of a different approach to things. But as far as the most difficult thing in developing the little game project that I've been working on in Game Maker, I would have to say it's the art. I am not an artist, so by all means, I am having trouble coming up with animation cycles and sprites and stuff, and getting them to actually look decent in the engine and the world that I'm working with.
Okay. And Saf.
Well, I was going to mention what Ansa said, though I've actually had quite an easy time coordinating my team, surprisingly. The biggest hurdle for my project personally has been public mistrust in pony games in general, because there have been a lot of pony games that have promised good and promised big things and failed to deliver, and especially because we pay everybody on the team, we weren't going to pay for. I wasn't going to pay my team to make a demo or some really fancy, pretty showy area in the game just for the sake of PR and earning people's trust. And so it has been extremely difficult for us to earn the trust of other people. So many times I've heard it. I've seen someone say, "Okay, but where's the gameplay? Oh, but where's the fancy graphics? Oh, this doesn't look very pretty." No, of course it doesn't, because it's an in-development game. The most meaningful stuff is the stuff that people don't know how to look for. It's the design behind the mechanics, the story, the amount of coordination going into it. The fact, like, even just the fact that we don't allow any volunteers on the team. We pay them because we want dedication and commitment, but most people are used to looking for the surface level details, which tend to be the most unimportant. So that has personally been the biggest struggle, is just trying to earn the trust of audiences out there, especially for the sake of financial support for the project.
So that is actually an interesting question to ask. How has fan perception affected both you, Saf, and Ansys, y'all's projects? Because I'm, as far as I'm aware, the other two haven't had as much to deal with on that one, being that they don't have big projects that they've announced for everybody to see. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Percelion.
Well, the most public thing I've done is probably the previous game jams that I've been involved with, at least game wise.
Okay.
As far as my current projects, as far as my current game project goes, no, I haven't announced anything about that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But for the two that work in studios, how does public opinion with the way that pony games seem to show up, promise big things, and disappear, how does that affect y'all's projects? Either
Ansys,
one of you.
I'll let you answer that one first. 'Cause I've already spoken just a little bit.
I haven't had like a bad reaction from the I don't know, our fans, but also I don't pay attention to our fans very much. I leave that to the other team members. The main thing that we kind of struggle with is not like perception with the fandom, but perception within the team. So like making sure that everybody feels that we're actually going somewhere and not spinning wheels in place. Like we can, yeah, because like we don't take money and we don't even accept donations. We accept nothing. So like the whole problem of people kind of giving us resources and then asking, like, where's the results? We don't, like, we kind of dodge that problem.
Okay.
As for me, I already spoke on it just a little bit. We as in Valiant Studios, have somewhat of the legacy of Ambient White behind us. Particularly because I and many other devs came from that team. That team was very poorly managed from just a general like project standpoint. They spent about 7 years spinning, trying to catch their own tail, essentially, constantly redesigning and reworking things, and not ever sitting down and having like a solid goal, which it still feels weird for me to say because they did actually have some stuff, but for some, like, there was a point where they actually supposedly have like the entire game made, but then like we never went into fleshing that out. It kept on just it kept on developing on things that had already been developed, but not in ways that improved it, but that drastically changed the game. So it was clear that they didn't really know that the lead dev, Dreamy Wings, didn't really know what he wanted to do with the game, and that burned me pretty hard, and several other individuals on the team. And in many ways, it caused a lot of distrust for people who had seen that project as well. And of course, there were things like Fighting is Magic had to be shut down. Starve for Light, the lead dev literally left and told no one. And I mean, what was it? What was that? Not Equestria Tales, though. Equestria Tales did get shut down. I don't remember what it was. Anywho, um, there just a few big games that there have been. I think Ansys's game is probably the only one that hasn't had this perception. But from what I've seen from other people, I have personally had it told to me, how are you going to be different from the other projects? How are you going to show us that like you're not going to fail like all these others have? And it's hard. It's really hard, particularly because we pay everyone on the team and there's no progress without that money, right? And so it is, and like, sure, verbal support, man, that's fine. Financial support is a whole other thing. But I will also say this: we've had very generous patrons that we've been blessed with that have really helped the project move forward. That have listened to my defense of the project, if that makes sense. I remember when we first opened our little dimensional shift server, I was like in the call and I got grilled by several game devs from other projects about the project, trying to see if it was legit or not. I'm pretty sure I made a good impression. But like the fact that you even have to grill someone about the development of their project is a little bit disconcerting, you know? That means that there is a precedent that this stuff doesn't exist, doesn't really not exist, but doesn't
Deliver.
doesn't deliver. Yes.
Quick question.
Yes.
Can you talk about a little bit about how much time does it take to manage the money part?
Like, how much time does it take me personally
okay.
to manage finances?
Yeah, so for comparison, right? Like at Overmare, we don't take any money, but we have several times considered starting taking money. But every time we have run against the problem, I guess, that by our own like kind of rough estimate, the money we could get would not be worth the amount it would take to manage that money, right? So like
Oh
you have
no,
to set up
managing
accounts, you
the
have to
money is
yada
easy.
yada yada.
Managing the money is incredibly
Really?
easy. Yeah, no, like if you don't mind us getting on this, if you don't mind me answering this question, Nameless.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, managing the managing the money, managing the money is incredibly easy. It's really just you know, especially if you do everything online, like PayPal, doing things. I do Ko-fi and Patreon for our project. Patreon acts like its own bank.
No,
Ko-fi literally just processes someone's PayPal
I
payment
mean
for
it in
them.
a different way.
Hold on a
I'm
second.
asking it in a sense that. Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry, you're asking in a sense that what?
Yeah, like it's not like the technical details, but so when people give money, they have expectations. So you have to put in work to manage them now, and also you have to put in effort now to fairly divvy that money up, and so on. And you have to spend time in discussions, presumably, to like decide, okay, where are we going to spend it now?
Okay, I see
On
what
what,
you're
right?
going
Somebody
for.
might ask, like, hey, let's buy these assets or whatever.
I thought you were talking about like the more like, oh, just by the way, you got to pay income taxes side of things, you know. But
Oh, like that's the next level.
yeah. Well, that's easy. Just go talk to a tax professional; they'll do it for you. So, firstly, just on a basics premise, the best way to do it is really just to manage everything through PayPal because I mean you have detailed records of everything there already. For me, I literally just for the taxes thing, it's just a once a year thing. We gather up all of our expenses and all of our income, and we send that to a tax dude that fills it out and files it for us that we pay him. Anywho, that aside. When it comes to how to pay people, what to pay them, and how to manage paying for assets, and how to manage expectations, the first thing to note is that Patreon and Ko-fi, while there is this culture of, oh, if you support us, you get rewards, you don't have to give them rewards. In fact, it takes away time and money from the actual project to spend effort on rewards for higher tier patrons, right? Like if you were an indie
Right.
dev or whatever, then fine. But we're talking about money and time that can go towards developing the project further, instead being spent on, whatever for the Patreon rewards. That you don't have to do that. I told the patrons up front, we aren't going to have very much rewards. Your rewards are basically just going to be what we can give that isn't out of our way to do it. Like showing them a little bit of visual progress for the $10 patrons, giving them a text update for the $1 patrons, allowing them to do dev testing for the game testing for the $50 patrons. The only one where we actually give them a substantial reward is the highest tier patrons, which is $100, and that is we make their OC a background character in the game somewhere. But that's also limited to just Pegasus, Unicorn, and Earth Pony species, because we're not going to pump more effort into developing like, a Griffin, because that's money wasted that isn't going to be used anywhere else, right? That's that side. So you totally have control over setting those expectations. Just say, look, all this money is going towards development. We really don't want to spend it on rewards because that takes time away and money away from the development. As for paying for assets, first of all, if you're paying for stuff off of like Blend Swap or like the Unity thing, man, that's straightforward. You just pay them. But paying for assets, specifically labor from people, what you should ultimately do is you should write a contract that states that for this payment, they hand over all the rights to copyright, patent, and trademark the thing that they're sending you, so that the development studio has the rights rather than that person. And so that leads me into actually paying the person, unless they already have rates figured out, which some people do. Generally, what I try to do if they don't, is I count how many hours they've spent doing it. I base that off of a reasonable minimum, not like $7.50 an hour, but like say $15 an hour or something like that. And then I ask them, how much do you think this was worth? And we find a reasonable middle that both they're satisfied with and also doesn't break the bank, And so each time, the first several times you're going to have to negotiate it with them until they start to figure out, okay, well, my thing is really worth this amount, and this is what I want to be paid. And you don't have to pay them all at once. You can pay them in chunks or whatever. And you could also just totally say, look, we don't have that much money. Is it okay if we just pay you this for this? Stuff like that.
Yeah. So how much time does that all take?
Not
As
much.
a fraction of your entire time spent on the project.
It's just as a fraction of the entire time I spend on the project, that probably takes up about 5 to 10% of all my time spent on the project. It's a very small amount. All of that financial stuff is a very small amount. I primarily focus on the development side of things.
Very
Anywho,
well.
big financial lecture over. Nameless. What's the next question?
So this question is going to be more for everybody, so that Priscillion and Scarlet don't have to sit in a corner while you two yell at each other.
We're learning here. We're learning here.
So
yes, the children are learning. Come on. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know what we're learning, but we're learning.
Money.
There will be a 30-question quiz after this. No, wait.
Oh, gosh.
specifically for Scarlet.
Oh, no.
But so this, and I'm probably going to pull out a lot of questions like this, but this is going to be a more generalized game development question rather than a pony development. What would you guys say is one of the most important parts of the games that you've made? Whether it's like, the tutorial, or like the story, the gameplay elements of various flavors. We're gonna go ahead and put Priscillion on the hot seat first.
The most important part of like a game in general.
Pretty much. What, in your opinion, as a developer?
I know it's a bit of a cop out, but yeah, I would have to say, getting everything that is relevant to the game communicated to the player, because there have been times where I've put things in a game that, of course, as a game dev, you think this is really intuitive and players are going to know, but a lot of people do overlook what developers think is obvious a lot of the time. So sort of making sure that's all signposted and clear is really important, so that players actually know what they have to do. Yeah, that's the struggle that I've had, I think, mainly.
Okay. Scarlett, I'm gonna let you go next.
So for me personally, since most of my projects have been sort of independent adventures anyway, I really think it's more important to focus on your core idea and the core mechanics of what you're trying to do before you go off and try to make it look all fancy and such. Because if you have no idea what your core idea or your core concept and the mechanics are, you're going to go all over the place and you're going to waste time and get frustrated trying to do something that's ultimately not important in the end, or you're going to get frustrated because players aren't going to be happy with what you've got, and all that sort of stuff.
You're gonna suffer from what's called feature creep.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's generally what I would consider is most important.
Okay. Ansys.
I guess I'm gonna also say a weird answer. Like to me, the most important part of like what we do, or what like that's around it's not the game itself, but the scaffolding around it. So automation, right? So like as team members change the game, it automatically gets rebuilt, and the link gets posted on Discord so the testers can test it, and we have like automatic other things, like automatically checking if the level is correct, if you made mistakes, and so on. So all that like pays dividends when you actually work on the game itself, and I think it saves a ton of time and frustration, and so that's why it's the most important part of the game, because the game rests on that, right? It's like when you build a house, you put the scaffolding around it. But I guess from the player facing things, I would imagine the most important for our game is good looking ponies that can emote and wear equipment and animate and do all the things, because we're kind of wannabe AAA, so all of those parts are important.
Okay. Saf.
Oh boy. I think the most important part. There's two most important parts. I don't think there's just one. I think there's the story and the gameplay. Because the gameplay is what makes it fun, right? And challenging, and what makes it a game, right? But the story is what makes it matter, and what makes someone care about it. Now, granted, not all games have stories, of course, and that's completely okay. And not all games have super gameplay focused stuff and are more story focused, right? But at least for Dimensional Shift, those two hold very, very close equals in terms of importance. Generally, because, as I said, the story is the reason why they're wanting to. It's the thing that keeps them there. It's the thing that keeps them coming back, as well as the gameplay. And yeah, I mean that's really it.
So I'm actually gonna weigh in on this one a little bit as a avid gamer and someone who has not only is attempting to find a job in games journalism, but is also going to be helping out with writing stories for games for a couple different people who I will not mention because I don't know if they want me to. I agree with you, Saf, because I have noticed there's two camps of thinking. It's games as art, where it's you enjoy it holistically, and then there's the games for mechanics, where it's like I am here to play the game because the game is fun. But
which is an art in and of itself.
But with some of the those games, like MMOs are a very popular example for this. The story is like the why do I care? Why am I here? And a lot of players may not admit it, but when they're running around doing the thing, if the gameplay is just okay and they don't have a story, they'll go, well, why am I sticking around? Why do I care about any of this? It's just like any other game that I've ever played. I'm gonna go play something different. So I've noticed that the question that I just asked is actually one that has no definitive answer, because Priscillian's right. If you don't signpost how to play the game, gamers will get very frustrated very quickly and then go find something else to do. Which means that they'll tell everybody they know, hey, this wasn't fun, don't play it. Recent pony example I actually was going to review and never got around to. What was it? It was
Astray?
Yeah, that one.
Throwing unnamed under the bus. I see how it is.
Philly Astray. So it has a mechanic in it, for those of you that may or may not have played it, where you can essentially it's not like a block per se. I think it's a parry mechanic. But nowhere in the game was that actually expressed. I didn't figure it out until like 4 hours in. I accidentally hit a button and it did a weird thing, and I'm like, wait a minute. Is this what I think it is?
You didn't read the manual, didn't you? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and that actually brings up another good point. It's like not a lot of people will read manuals or anything like that. So like integrated tutorials are the best way to go, because they don't realize they're even doing a tutorial until they start putting the mechanics together. But I do.
Funny you should mention that, but sorry, go ahead.
I do want to poke an answers for.
Actually,
go ahead.
Sorry, do you mind if I weigh in on that?
Yes.
Because I was going to say, like sometimes the signposting can work against like keeping players coming back, because I do believe that there is, depending on the game, there is a place for like hidden mechanics like that. If it's not necessary, it can be like hidden as a kind of an Easter egg for people to discover that that mechanic exists, and then just like Saf said, it like reignites the but people who like speedrunning especially, they come back and they try and use this new mechanic to their advantage.
Well, yeah, but if it is,
if it's like necessary to play the game and you leave it unsignposted, that can cause a lot of problems. But
those are the kinds of mechanics that I was primarily talking about.
Yeah, but leaving something for players to discover does have its place as well, depending on the genre.
Yeah,
I would agree as well.
one thing I would like to chime in on that. This is kind of a unique perspective because one thing that I was taught in engineering school, I don't remember the exact class that we learned this in, but when you're designing something, even in engineering, you got to take into account your least smart, quote unquote, target audience or product
The
users.
lowest common denominator.
Because there are going to be people out there who will be like, I don't need to read the manual, and then they go and do something with your product that you're like, what were you thinking?
And that's actually something that that we've had to heavily consider for dimensional shift. There have been several times where I was like, well, but I mean, like most people just be okay with this, right? Like I mean, the players will understand, and Ruzel has to be like, no, they will not.
Yeah, because a lot of those players that you're attracting to your game, some of them might not have even touched the genre that you're making before.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and
you have to like keep that in the back of your mind.
like for a literal example, actually, if you don't mind, I'll keep this short. When we were doing the first rounds of testing for all of our primary mechanics for dimensional shift, we just did it within the team. Now, granted, the entire team doesn't have access to the game files, nor can they run it just because, I mean, they'd have to build it on their side, and that's a pain in the butt. But like, you know, so they hadn't played the actual game. They've seen people play it, but they haven't actually played it themselves. So we handed it to them just as an initial test audience, and very quickly figured out. You see, the game is like it's a mouse controlled sword, and you're supposed to click and hold the mouse button in order to keep the sword up. Very quickly figured out that nobody's going to click and hold that thing unless there's some type of feedback to tell them to do that, and we don't want an invasive pop-up that says please click and hold the mouse button, you know. And so instead we thought, okay, well, there's this thing here, and when they click, it will target their viewpoint there, and it will like show a little a thing like a loading bar, and then like that will encourage them to keep the thing clicked, and then they'll notice, oh, I have a sword attached to my mouse there, and that's exactly what happened. I'll credit to Aruzel for thinking that. Aruzel is our lead game dev, but having like as a dev, the things that to us is very obvious because we've been in the weeds for such a long time of the project is so unobvious to everybody else. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, is that everything for that question, or anybody else want to weigh in on it before I pick on answers?
Pick on the answers.
Okay, so we're
Maybe
picking
he'll
on
have some
answers.
answers.
So answers. You said something about AAA. I would like
Yes.
I would like your opinions on what that means, because I know what most of the gaming industry thinks it is.
Do you? But okay, for us, it means like full fidelity, kinda. So the game that we're after, that we're copying, right, is Fallout 3, and now 4, and now of course we've played 76.2, and we're looking at that. And those games are AAA. And like, so AAA means, for example, let's say in another game, like some kind of RPG maker or whatever, your character has like two sprites, right? Like the left foot, right foot, and you just move between cells, and you just equip and unequip stuff through menus. Dialogue is just text boxes and so on, right? Like the rest is imagination. While for the AAA-ness is that, or like the AAA, what makes something AAA is kind of like that you try to realize all the things. So walking is correct. Your feet are not sliding. You have correct animations for changing direction, right? Because like, for example, what's the PAL World, the game that's super popular, came recently out. If you look at the monsters or like the characters, they, I don't know, they have like 2 or 3 animations. That's it, right? They don't have turning animations. They just turn just like that, right? And everybody accepts that, and it's a popular game, right? So that's like not AAA. For me, like AAA, so we have that. We have facial animation, we have fully voiced dialogue, we have high resolution textures, we strive for high quality lighting, and like all these like high production values, I guess you could say. And we try to, or at least I personally push, like there's some pushback from other team members, but I try to push for so that basically that we only portray in the game things that we can portray, right? So if we would need to do something where the like writer writes like, okay, here's going to be this scene, and I ask like, how do we realize that? They say, you just have like a dialogue option, right? It's like, in stars, pokes you or hit or does whatever. I'm like, no, let's think of something that we can actually show, so that we don't have to have like action dialogue lines for this. So that's what I mean by AAA.
Okay.
Mind if I butt into that?
Go ahead.
Do it.
I very quickly got off of that line of thinking because it's expensive.
Yes, it is.
And also, so on a similar line of thinking, I had told Aruzal when he first came, I was like, look, I want like perfect code. We're gonna have no bugs. This thing's gonna work, and it's gonna be efficient.
I'm sorry, I'm not even a game dev, and that's funny to me.
It's gonna be efficient. It's gonna be well made. It's gonna be seamless. And he said, son, this thing is made out of duct tape and bubble gums. You're trying to make a piece of sand think. It's a miracle that this thing even works half the time. I'm like, oh. and so like for me, while I used to be like that, I very quickly developed a sense of what is important. Ultimately, what is important is to me, as I've already said, mechanics, story, and then a third one, immersion. Anything that breaks the immersion, I don't want that. So that would constitute us having animations on the characters if they're talking or stuff like that, right? I really another thing that like not breaking immersion is having tutorials that aren't
Pop-ups.
that aren't just like pop-ups with a little video that shows you how to do it. No, instead it's tutorials that just literally tell you a control, which we can excuse as part of the HUD that comes up because he's like wearing a sci-fi suit and it has a HUD on it. And then they just kind of have to figure it out. But we've made that area in a way where they can intuitively figure that out, and we have tested that with lots of people just to make sure that everybody's figuring it out the same way and it's not just because these folks over here have extra smarticle particles than I do, and so like I said, quickly because of budget, very quickly learning to make compromises and to spend the money wisely was important to us. The only reason why we at Valiant Studios are going for even a realistic visuals is because it's cheaper to make realistic visuals than it is to make stylized ones, because you have to have artists to custom make
expand
all
on
that.
that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, I'm kind of curious too.
Well, it is
Yeah.
because imagine, like a game that looks like a painting. You have to custom make all that stuff most of the time, right? Sure, you can make automated systems, and there have been cool tech demos out there that showed everything looking like paint and whatnot, but like realistically, you gotta draw most of that yourself. You have to have an artist to do that, and you have to pay them to do that. It's a lot easier to go on polygon.com or textures.com and nab some PBR textures, slap those on a model that you spent 5 minutes on in Blender, and put it in the background, And so, not that that's as simple as it is, it's not, but it means that we don't have to spend extra money paying someone to make super mega custom textures for everything, and we can have things like the dirt on the ground, right? We don't have to pay someone to make textures of that. We pay Polygon.com a yearly subscription to have HD dirt on the ground. You know that you see the little shadows of the pebble in the light, right? So
Right. So
that type of
what fraction of your assets would you say is self-made, and what fraction is like from Polygon or elsewhere?
that is difficult to say because, like, say for instance, the textures. A lot of the texturing comes from sites like that, right? But a lot of the other custom stuff. Now, granted, like the models, that can be custom made, and then we use those textures to texture it. Now, I will note this: we are early on in development. We have not made very many physical assets to put in the game. We've only made them as needed because we're in the block meshing phase, really kind of on the tail end of pre-production. So, like, you know, we haven't really spent all that much money on assets anyways, because what's the point of spending money on assets if you don't know if you're going to use them or not? So that's kind of been what we've been in, and so we've been able to save money that way. But soon enough, we're definitely going to be making a lot of assets, and that is going to require people to do that and for it to be paid. But to have one less step, like say for the textures, to have one less step, because we don't have to pay an individual artist for it, which we do have a texture artist for custom stuff, but we don't have to pay an individual artist for the majority of the textures. That saves a lot of money in the long run. When you think about the hundreds and hundreds of textures that are required for models, and how much money it would take to pay that person either hourly or by commission over however long it takes them to make all those hundreds and hundreds of textures, right? That's a lot of money in the end. A lot less than paying Polygon or Textures.com for some credits. Or a lot more than paying them for some credits. Anywho, that's all I have to say in that regard.
Okay, so it begs the question with since it's been brought up, stylized versus realism. A lot of people will point to stylized as it ages better. Is that something that you are concerned with?
Me? Oh, so no, I'm not. Because we're not going for realistic. We're just leaning more closer to realistic than stylized, if that makes sense. We're not trying to make it photoreal. It's just, it is cheaper to lean towards that. Have you ever seen the, I should have sent this to you. In any type of art, there are three styles in a sense. There's realistic, there's abstract, and there's stylized. Realistic is pretty obvious. It's exactly mimicking the real world. Stylized is having a basis in the real world, but exaggerating certain features.
Something along the lines of, say, Borderlands.
Yes. Or My Little Pony comparative to realistic horses. They don't actually look like that, right? And then
I was gonna say, yeah.
And then abstract is something that doesn't have a basis in reality or very little basis in reality. And so imagine those as 3 points of a triangle. Our graphics quality leans more towards realistic than stylized, but it's not completely realistic. Like, our goal isn't photorealism. Our goal is just to make the graphics look nice and communicate effectively and efficiently and cost effectively. And more stylized means more cost, so that's why we lean towards that. I personally like stylized games, but we don't have the budget for that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to round us back a little to the AAA question, because I think the other two had something they wanted to add to that. Or at least it looked like they did. I'm not entirely certain. Priscilla, did you have anything you want to say to that?
If I did, I have forgotten it.
Oof.
Well,
Yeah.
Every time.
I will say, in my experience as both a gamer and someone who has never like actually been a part of a dev team, but has studied games and the game industry for a while, there are technically two definitions. There's the consumer definition, and whatever the hell the devs, I should rephrase that, the executives believe AAA are. The executives believe that it's whatever's going to give them the most money, that they spend billions of dollars in up to 10 to 20 years making, sometimes less, depending on which game you're talking about, because Call of Duty is still considered a AAA game, even though it gets churned out every year and is dips in quality. You can really see that what they think of that definition of AAA when the quote-unquote quadruple A Ubisoft MMO came out, and you can't even get off the pirate ship. No swashbuckling for you.
Yeah, I think as far as the wider gaming landscape goes, I think it's become a bit of a confused term, if I can say that, because you do come across games quite frequently these days, actually, that biometrics look and play like AAA, but they are, in fact, indie. Like, one person can make something that's on that level of quality now.
Well, AAA indie is a phrase that I have heard said.
I have heard
I think
once or
AAA.
I have heard it once or twice in reference to just like some of the best indie games that have come out in recent memory. But honestly, at this point, calling anything AAA to most gamers is telling them that it's a microtransaction fueled bug fest.
Yeah, I'm inclined to
I
agree
would
with that.
disagree.
I'm inclined to agree with that because I think one of the biggest examples in my mind is Cyberpunk 2077.
I was just thinking that.
And just the big nightmare that there, all the hype around it, and then it comes out and the car clips through the freaking road. You know, it's corporatism. It's what it is. It's corporate skimming and trying to make as much money possible with as little effort possible. It's not aiming for quality. It's aiming for quantity of time and money spent. So
I will note
that's generally, unfortunately, what a lot of people unfortunately think. But it didn't used to be that way. AAA used to mean high quality.
I will note that it may be different because for ANSYS, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you're probably from Europe.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb and say it may look a bit different from your side of the pond, but here in the US, where we've gotten really used to somebody says AAA game, it's normally like Activision, EA, Ubisoft, something to that effect, and you can expect one of three things. They are going to cram it so full of microtransactions it's not worth playing. It's going to be so buggy and like absolutely massive for no reason, even though if they had cut it down to like half the size, it would have been just as impactful of a game. Or three, the devs are going to be abused to hell and back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's all three of those things.
Yeah.
Indie games, from my experience, are looked a lot more favorably on nowadays. Unless, of course, you're like the perpetual early access game. that is
don't get started on that. We'll be here for another hour if we start on that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we'll perpetually be in the beginning of the podcast. No.
Podcast will release 6 to 8 months from now.
yeah. Fucking, it reminds me of.
Don't worry, we'll delay it too. But yeah, AAA has been tarnished quite a bit from what it was originally expected to be.
Oh, sure. Like, I think, what was it? AAA used to mean excellence, now it means extravagance.
Yes,
You
that pretty
you may steal that.
That is a really good way of putting it.
that
actually.
pretty succinctly sums it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when I see an indie developer say that they're going to make a big game and all of that, like Power World, for example, since somebody already brought it up, Power World is actually, as a player, a really fun and interesting game, despite the fact that it openly wears on its sleeve that, hey, I'm just taking a bunch of shit that works from other games and smacking it together, and everybody seems to like it for some reason.
Yeah, like
Particle accelerator of games.
Yeah, like let's just remember, and this is how many games from the past that were considered amazing technological feats and high quality graphics and amazing animations are really all that significant nowadays. There really aren't many of them, because there were a lot of them back then that were like that. But they don't get talked about too much anymore because they weren't as fun or memorable as a video game. Sure, they may have had cool graphics and animations and voice lines and music, but that's not what makes the game special or important. It's the gameplay and the story that really leaves the impact. That's why things like Super Metroid are still being
Portal.
touted today as huge. Portal, Half-Life.
Mhm.
Half-Life had pretty crappy graphics, and
Still does.
And sure, yeah, still does, but like its gameplay was fun. Half-Life 2 does not live up to its quality in terms of visuals, but it's still fun to play. Man, even Pac-Man is still fun to play, and Galaga, right?
And
Because the game is ultimately fun to play.
I would also say that a good story goes a long way to also helping a game, because if you stripped away most of Bethesda's like story stuff that everybody was interested in, the vaults, the Dovahkiin, whichever game you choose that was actually well received, you strip that away and you get the instances like Fallout 76 where nobody really wants to play it because it's not fun. But Fallout, for example, because I feel like Ansys's team is working on something that will feel very similar. I'm making assumptions because I have never played a demo of any type for it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ansys. But
basically, we are Fallout 3 or 4 with ponies.
Yeah, so
that's the super short version.
The appeal for those games are less so the mechanics and more so the world building and the stories within it, and being able to go out into the wastes and find aliens randomly. Or like one of my favorite DLCs was the one that was essentially a Lovecraftian story off in the fog.
It's the experience, you mean,
Yeah.
that really draws them in.
So experience in games can be driven with what people consider AAA studios, but honestly, in the most recent few years, it's been all indie games that have really pushed that envelope.
Mm-hmm. What comes to mind for me, I don't even know if y'all know this game. Anybody here ever heard of the game Expand?
No.
Sounds vaguely familiar. I don't know.
It is I can't even call it a rhythm game. It's a small puzzle game. But for me, the experience of it is fun enough that I have shared it like with several people. Even though it's literally just shapes. You are a pink block and you are going through shapes. Like you are maneuvering through shapes and trying not to get crushed to death, right? Like it's extremely simple in its mechanics, but it's very engaging and fun and interesting to play. And even the implied story behind it is very interesting. What the dev is trying to tell through it. Outer Wilds. Oh my gosh, Outer Wilds, bro. If any of y'all haven't played Outer Wilds, you should. it's a really good example of something that is really simple. You think it's space game, but like there's no combat, there's no guns, there's no fancy stuff like that. It's just going and scanning and finding clues and figuring out the story and all that stuff, and it's really fun, right? The graphics aren't like the super best in the world.
I actually
They could be way better.
I have a really good example for something like that. The Stanley Parable. It's a walking sim.
Parable.
But like it's
Yeah,
memorable.
true.
But yeah,
I agree.
I think we're gonna move on from this topic a bit though, and I'm gonna ask a similar question to one I asked earlier, but with a bit of a twist. So I asked you previously, as game devs, like what was the most difficult thing about your game making. Now I'm gonna reflavor that question. What about Pony? Like, does Pony make it any more or less difficult for you? And I feel like the two doing 3D games are going to have more to say about that. But we're going to start with Priscillian, because Priscillian hasn't talked much.
I'm also the one who starts all these questions, apparently.
Apparently, I'm just.
Sorry,
I've noticed.
Well, it's because we have to single you out because you're British. So
Is it because I'm British?
yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
You got a problem.
Does Pony
You drink
make
all the
it,
tea.
does Pony make it easier?
Or does it make it harder? Either way.
Or does it make it hard? I think it might be both, actually, because it makes it easier. It makes it easier in terms of like design, I think, because you have the framework of fan games and stuff that have come before, because there have been loads of fan games, both using canon characters and otherwise, that you can sort of draw from and iterate on that style. But on the flip side, those fan games have set something of a precedent, and people expect certain things from Pony games, and like my project is aiming to use like 100% original assets, so it's like original characters in an original world, even though it's based on something like Mega Pony, which does use canon characters. It's taking its own direction, similar to like Dem's Fight Nerds, for example, where they sort of reinvented the world. But it's always difficult to sort of fight against that that precedent that Pony has to be a certain way. I think to get it close to the style enough so that people recognize, yeah, this is a Pony game and not a horse game. Because I recently realized that horse games are an entirely different niche. Go figure.
Yeah.
Really?
Did you learn that from Compute?
Oh, there's a Discord about it.
Oh no, there are other channels that I've seen for that, but yeah, you have to make it recognizable as a Pony game specifically, but not so much Pony that it comes off as
Rip-off?
A rip-off. Yeah.
Okay. Scarlett.
So that's an interesting question to ask me because I haven't technically done anything with a Pony game specifically. In my, because I want to at some point, but I think for me the challenge is again the art. Trying to keep that balance between making it look Pony and knowing how to make it Pony. That's going to be a future challenge for me.
Okay.
I mean, all of my previously published games have been furry themed because that's the fandom that I come from.
Fair.
So this this project that I'm talking about here is actually my first pony project as well.
Ah.
And just so the audience knows, you're the one with the little Mega Man ponies with the
Yeah.
like the 8-bit, 16-bit. I don't remember which.
Yeah, it's using the same color scheme as
It's actually up on screen right now.
it's using the same color scheme as I think it was the NES that the original Mega Man was on.
Mhm.
Yeah. I can't remember which one that was. I think it was 8-bit.
It was 8-bit, yes.
Yeah. So it's using that same color scheme.
I see. Now, for the side of the podcast that has to deal with things that have physics in
Sorry,
3D spaces.
Were we going to ask that question to the 3D side of the group?
Yes, that's what we're about to do.
Who
I
goes
think.
first?
Who goes rock, paper, scissors? Let's go.
Fight!
Zaf has been talking a lot, Ansys, so you can go first.
All right. There's two parts to this, I would say. What's easier is that Pony gives you a ready-made template. It constricts. You don't have to deal with a completely blank canvas, right? Yeah. So our project, right, Fallout Equestria, the all the inspiration is there for us. All the characters are there for us, and so on. And you could do any kinds, like for example, the Ponies game, right? It's The Sims, but with ponies. Again, you know what to do. Just make it more pony, and like again, you're not starting from complete scratch because like often, like why do I play not so many indie games is because they are all very like they don't talk to me, right? It's like some random characters. Okay, here's like in this game it's furry characters, in that game it's fantasy themed, in that game it's something, and it's like, so Pony gives you that, right? It's Pony. But on the 3D side, Pony is harder because there is very little prior art. Like there's very little to look at on how to correctly do things for quadrupeds and for horses and for ponies. So like let's say if you go look at some game engines, they often have ready-made features to do with humanoids. And many things are easier in humanoids. So for a humanoid can be its hitbox can be approximated by a vertical capsule. For pony, it doesn't. Like a pony cannot turn in place guaranteed, right? Because it's elongated. So you could have a tunnel narrow enough that you can't turn around in. So how do you do that? What do you do in your game, right? How do you do a 3D shooter, let's say, where the expectation is that the player character faces wherever the mouse is pointing? That's a problem. Any kind of like if you want to do AAA things, right? So foot IK, right? So you don't just have like a dumb animation like in some simpler game, but like you have, like you correctly go upstairs or downstairs, or if the ground is uneven, you place your feet correctly. That is also very little to look at on how it's done correctly. I think that cowboy game, Red Dead Redemption has it correctly, and that's it. Like even Legend of Zelda doesn't have correct horse feet, right? It just puts the horse, like takes whichever, like just puts the horse on the slope, and that's it. And other things like making the character. Of course, the whole topic of like G4 was 2D, and then we go 3D, and there's quite a lot of people actually going like 3D sucks for ponies, right? I want my 2D waifus. And so making that look good, like for the longest time, Ashes of Equestria characters where people kept saying that they looked creepy. It took us a long time to make them less so, and even still, it's like not as good as it could be. Yeah, so that's harder.
I see.
I pretty much agree with what Ansys says. In fact, you could see like through the little slideshow, some of the images that I submitted to this are the drawings of what looks like Twilight, both the head spin and with a bunch of expressions on it. That was a lot of the work that we had to do to really figure out the design of our ponies, because we wanted to differentiate ourselves from the show, because we don't want to get copyright struck. And it's not even Twilight anymore. It's like we've redesigned her hair and all that other stuff and name.
Mm-hmm.
But like just translating. In fact, for anyone on live, if it's okay if I plug this, because this is more for education than advertising. If you go to that, if you search Valiant Studios LLC, Dimensional Shift Update 2, I don't know, whatever. The first half of that video talks about our process of designing the 3D ponies, which was complicated. Both because, like, for many reasons. One, because rigging is hard. And at the time we did complete facial bone rigs instead of shape keys, because we didn't know if shape keys were going to work. And we do now, and thank God, because the bone rigs are horribly broken. For the face, that is. We also, like, ooh, I gotta get my bearings here. I'm tired. It's been a long day, bros. I'm tired, guys. Anywho,
You're
like,
tired. It's 3:30 in the morning over here.
Yeah.
okay, yeah, but you sleep like through you sleep in the middle of an afternoon. Okay, hush. Anywho, so there was that. The whole translating it into 3D part is a task in of itself, right? Future proofing the thing so that it actually does all the stuff that we want it to. Making sure that it's going to function on lower spec systems, that it's not like too high poly or too high quality textures, or that it has proper amounts of different LODs or levels of detail.
I have a thing about that, but you finish.
Okay. But like, and then also, of course, the animation side. But really what Ansys touched on there is the design. Because the thing is that the design of the ponies in the show, man, they couldn't move around those parts to make them as cute as they wanted. Priscilla, and I'm sure you know that, because you've had to make vector art of ponies before. And like, you can, that ain't anatomically correct, that's for sure. And
Yeah.
we're just used to it because it looks cute. It looks cute in that 2D medium. Okay, but how do you get it to look that way in a 3D medium? You can't. You really can't. Not to get it to look like that. Like, the SFM models tried, but
I was going to bring up the SFM models. Actually,
anybody who's ever actually played with the SFM model, or even remember the early animations of the SFM models, they looked weird and horrible. But nowadays, you can see, they look really good now in many areas. But actually, it's camera trickery, because they know if they take the camera really far away and zoom in and like have the different focal lengths on it, they can make it look a little bit more flat and orthographic than it is, and that makes it look not as horrible. But when you put that in a game that has to have a 60 to 90 field of view range of the camera, dude, it looks disgusting. And so you still have to make it cute with that. And like a big thing for us was the eyes. Oh my gosh! First of all, the eyes on the first
Oh,
Twilight model
yes.
looked horribly buggy. Our second version of the eyes, like pony eyes, are humongous, dude. They're huge. They're a ginormousaurus, and like when we tried to make, like, you saw in the art that like in the art on the thing that like the drawn art, the eyes are huge, and we want them to be huge because we want them to be really expressive and cute. But then we put that in the model, and she looks like a freaking alien, you know. So we got to change that. You know, it doesn't translate exactly, and so that is really the job of an artist, and that takes an experienced artist, both on the side of the character art and design in the 2D and in the 3D, but also being able to communicate with each other, which can be pretty difficult. So yeah, that's the struggles there.
I would imagine the change in amount of realism in a model would also vastly contribute to the kind of creepy, uncanny valley.
Yes, and it depends on, like, because we tried for, it depends on what you consider realism. Because if you're talking about realistic textures, I'm just going to be honest. My experience with trying to make realistic fur textures has been it looks like wrinkly skin. It either looks like wrinkly skin, or it looks like actual horse fur, which you have to have like a mega huge quality texture in order to do that. If like depending on how you unwrap the model, and it can just be a nightmare, to be honest.
And I mean, in the show, they don't exactly look like they have horsehair up until the point that somebody messes with it.
I wish I could show it. Nameless, you're gonna have to figure out a way to like have a screen where people can show stuff, because we actually did have a test version of the model that had fur, but it was only fur that you would see on the side profile of the character. So if you were looking like straight on at Twilight, like, or like straight from the side, like you wouldn't see fur texture on like the pieces of skin facing directly towards you, but on the edges you'd see the hint of fur and fluffiness. And so
I'll ask you
that
later how you
balance
did
of
it.
that. Hair cards, but we couldn't end up doing it in Unreal because the lighting did not work properly with it. You might be able to do it in Unity, but we were unable to pull it off in Unreal.
Okay. For those of
Ansis,
you,
you did want. Hold on a second, Ansis, you did want to say something about something. I don't remember.
Performance.
Yes.
You mentioned about performance, but so for us, performance is the one thing that I've kind of decided to trade away. As in, like, I've noticed we started the project in 2013, 14. It's now 10 years later, right? It will soon be that everybody has RTX, so it might even make sense to start asking like ray tracing as a basic feature. So we skip baked lighting, and so on. So yeah, that's a very interesting aspect to like long running fan game projects, as opposed to like professional games or like short lived projects. Is that you can actually afford a little bit of that.
Well,
Like
if I may make
relying on computers getting better later.
If I may make a counter comment, but also just ask you a question real quick. Are you intending on selling Ashes of Equestria? like having it be a game that you're paying for?
Yes, we will sell Asses of Equestria.
that is an entirely different game, my friend.
Yeah.
It will be free.
See, we at Dimensional Shift. We at Valiant Studios are intending to sell this game. Damn it! Shut up for so long. We are intending to sell this game, and if people are unable to play it because, like, we're intending to sell it at a relatively low, reasonable price, like probably around $30 to $30-ish, probably around $20 to $30. A lot of people can afford a $20 to $30 game. especially if it's something that's really good to play. But not a lot of people can afford the several $1,000s you have to lay down to get a top of the line gaming rig. And so most people that we're going to be catering to are not just the high level PC rig guys, but also the general audience that doesn't have that type of stuff, because we want as much sales as possible, because we want to make more games. All the money from those games from that game is going to be put into the next
Fair
one
enough.
and the next one. So that's why we care greatly about performance in that regard.
Yeah, I could see that being understandable. What was my question?
What was your question?
Well, before I get to that, I'm going to remind everybody in the audience, for those of you that may or may not be watching, don't forget that if you have questions for these guys as well, if you put those into the chat, ICE will collect them up and we will look over them. And if you want priority on that, check out the Patreon. Shameless plug. Anyways, so
Can they be patrons of our projects too?
well
because one of the patrons of my project asked a question, but go ahead. Sorry.
Brain cell. What was I gonna say now? Damn it, Saf! You ruined my train of thought.
Well, maybe you should buy another ticket, huh?
That doesn't help when the tracks don't go anywhere.
There goes the brain cell. Off it goes.
Look
Never
at
to
it
be seen
go!
Over to Timbuktu.
What I was gonna say was, we're actually gonna, at the end of this, like, I'm gonna let you guys like pitch your projects, elevator pitch type pitch, so that everybody knows for sure, like this is what you're getting into. I'm pretty sure that one of the better known projects here is Ansys's, but I'm still gonna make him do it too. But
I swear, Ansys,
I don't know,
if you just say Fallout 4 was
everybody
I'm
keep-
gonna turn you into glue.
But let me check and make sure we don't already have some questions from the audience.
We do.
Apparently, people are really curious on how old I am and when I joined the fandom. If you want to find that out, we'll do a special stream at some point for that specifically.
Nameless is as old as time, and he doesn't know what fandom you're talking about.
See, JHop 2004 has a question, and I think we'll go ahead and jump into like the audience questions section. What games did y'all have the most fun playing, if I can ask?
Well, I don't know. Can you ask? Anyway,
I'm a
Yes, you can.
Metroidvania goon. So Metroid Prime is probably one of my favorite ones. It's what Dimensional Shift is primarily inspired off of.
it depends for me because like I I do have certain genres that I tend to lean towards, but I also have a lot of fun with other genres. But if I had to pick like my top several games, it would be things like Roller Coaster Tycoon and Planet Coaster, and then Minecraft and the Portal series.
This was a triumph.
Yep.
What about you, Priscellion and Ansys?
Well, growing up, I used to play a lot of the PS1 platformers. So I had I had the licensed Toy Story 2 game on PS1.
Here's the real question: did you play Spyro the Dragon?
I played all the Spyros.
Hell yeah!
I was a Spyro nut growing up.
Me too, man. Me too.
Spyro 2.
It was another
I didn't
pun.
hear that. Sorry. Oh.
I said that's something to aspire to.
Oh my gosh. To the glue factory.
I regret asking to hear that again.
I don't know
Although,
what you were expecting.
But I've been through a lot of genres as I've gotten older. I sort of branched out and began to experiment with a lot of different things. I went through a period where I was playing basically nothing but visual novels for a time.
Oh,
There
no.
was there was a racing game phase that I went through. Two of the games in particular that got me hooked for hours at a time was Endless Ocean on the Wii, the original one, and Dust and Elysian Tale on the Xbox.
Ooh, that one was very pretty. I remember that one.
Yeah, that is a beautiful game,
Kansas.
which also happens to be a
Hey.
Metroidvania.
So here are some games I really like and would like to advertise. I guess is of course I guess number one probably has to be Splatoon, because I bought a Wii U just to play it when it came out. Like it almost dethroned ponies for me for a while. As in, like, I saw that art, I saw that game, and it's like, yes, it's for me. So it's a really good game. How they designed it, also, I highly recommend looking up, because they truly began from gameplay first, and like they're squids because they squirt ink, right? The squirting ink came first. And other games, of course, Breath of the Wild. We reference in our internal discussions Breath of the Wild surprisingly often. It is like, if you are tired of open world RPGs, then Breath of the Wild will show you how it's done properly. So it's truly fun and everything is fitting together, and it's like there's no extraneous stuff. Like, truly every part of the open world is there for a good reason. And a couple more is, of course, first Fallout. Not Fallout 2 or 3 or 4, but like the first Fallout. Really good game and a good inspiration. And for just pure like gameplay and stuff, FTL and Into the Breach. Two small games by the same guys that have basically taken a small thing and polished it to perfection. And it's like, yeah. There
Okay.
you go.
So I'm gonna answer this one too because it's my podcast and I make the rules. Everybody should definitely go play Undertale as well as any of the Spyro the Dragon games before or after Skylanders. Skylanders does not exist. Other than that, let's get to the next question. Here's a question for all. If possible, would you want to your games you've made on console? If so, which ones and why?
No. I mean, like, yeah, but I feel like it's gonna be a lot of work to convert Dimensional Shift to a console game. Because it's already, like, you have to use the mouse to control the sword like a Wii remote, right? So unless there's some ability to do that, now granted, Aruzel says that he's figured out a way to do that, but it would mean like a complete rewrite of like a lot of the controls of the mechanics, and that's going to change how they feel and how the game plays. It would be a very different feeling game because of that. And a lot of people have also said, hey, y'all should put it on VR. Also another thing that we will consider, and we have ideas for, but definitely something that needs to be done after the game is finished and not mid-development.
I feel like it would work really well with VR with the ability to like wave it around like a Wii remote.
True. There is no denying that, and that's why a lot of people have said it. But it's just a lot of development stuff that we would have to do. So we just, yeah. Anywho, next person.
Marcellion.
Maybe once I actually finish a game.
So what was the question again?
Do you want to put any of your games on console? If yes or no, why?
That does present a well, it presents a challenge for me at the moment, or a problem, because the engine that I'm using at the moment is not compatible with all platforms. It does do exporting to one, but that one is the Nintendo Switch.
Okay.
Oh boy.
And I going forward, I don't know how viable that would be in particular. However, I have been considering moving some of the game ideas that I've had from Pixel Game Maker to other engines. I know Ren'Py is capable of exporting to other things, or I believe it is.
The visual novel engine?
Yeah, the visual novel engine.
Sorry,
Yes.
that's all I know it for.
Yeah, fair. And I know that Godot, the engine Godot, that can port to mobile as well. So that's something that I've been considering. That mobile might be possible, but if it does come to that, that's probably that's probably like years in the future. So that's yeah, I've considered other engines that are better suited to porting to consoles and mobile. So I would, if I learned how to do that, I probably would.
Okay.
But the game that I'm making at the moment probably isn't going to make it to consoles just because of the limitations of the engine.
Okay. Answers.
If Steam Deck counts, then yeah, that would be nice to get the game
I
on.
forgot about the Steam Deck.
But like proper consoles is never ever, and I can so I have actually targeted consoles at my day job, and they're you have to be making money to target consoles because you need to get the dev kit, you need to buy access, you need to license a bunch of shit. That's all costs money and also costs a ton of time, because to target a console, you can't just make a thing and publish to it. They have like a 1,000-page rule book of like how everything has to work on and look, and you have to pay them to test your game for acceptance before they will allow it on your store, right? And it's like all kinds of like, so for example, PlayStation games, they have to load in 10 seconds or less. All the button prompts have to be used the correct like the PlayStation icons, right? You can't just say like press left trigger or whatever. No. You have to press and then the icon RT, and they will fail you if you make one mistake here. And then you have to go through like approval all over again and pay them again, and it costs like several weeks and so on. It's like you have to be making serious money for it to be worth at all. So no, not going to target any proper consoles. Only Steam Deck, maybe.
Okay. Let's see. Next one. We're going to go ahead and jump to the next question. It feels like it's moving so fast because there's so few of you. And Saf has not had a chance to wax poetic about it yet.
What? Wax poetic
I
about
thought he
what?
already did that.
What am I waxing?
Don't worry about
Wax on, wax off.
it.
Don't worry about it.
Ouchie. Ouchie and the Fauci, bro.
This one is also
Feelings are
from
gone.
Cup. What was the most nostalgic moment you ever felt in a game, or most memorable?
Killing Mother Brain and Super Metroid. I guess.
Uh,
That is a tricky one.
Or fucking finally getting to GLaDOS's main chamber in Portal 1 when I was like 11.
One of the others
The rest
got.
of y'all, stop thinking and talk.
well, I have the instant memory is Command and Conquer 3 Tiberian Wars. When it was made, it actually has 3 campaigns, right? It has GDI, Nod, and Skrin, and like the alien race, and that's the first time they are playable. But the game was made such that the fact that there's a Skrin campaign is hidden, so it didn't show up anywhere in the menus or anything. But when you complete both other campaigns and you like start look like you scroll past the I don't know, credits or whatever, and suddenly the game goes back to main menu and the main menu morphs, revealing another campaign. That's like
Cool.
you thought you've beaten the game, and then there's like you wish there was more, and bam, you get it. And that was like
Your prayers have been answered.
I shit my pants. That was like a really good moment. And in general, Command and Conquer, like their main menus and installers of the games were amazing, right? Because it wasn't just like a next finish window. It's like welcome commander, initializing battlefield the data, transferring whatever. It's like staying in character throughout, right? Even in the installer, they are doing it. I wish more games did that.
Well,
Though again,
anyone who's-
nowadays you just download it on Steam and there's no like CD or anything.
Hmm.
I was going to go ahead and answer, but I interrupted you. Sorry.
Oh no, you can go first.
Speak Fury.
Anyone who has followed my channel or watched me play games on my channel for a while now probably knows World of Goo and Minecraft. Just all I have to say is just those 2 titles, and that's like the majority of my channel, because like those games are just very nostalgic for me because I grew up on those games, and it's just they're fun in that regards. It's not necessarily a specific story moment or a specific mechanic or whatever. It's just memories, and the music brings back a lot of those memories, and the art style brings back a lot of those memories. So.
Dude, it's gonna be so funny when this generation is like old and we have Alzheimer's, and like instead of like playing 80s music or whatever to like get us to remember stuff, they instead like they find an old Dell laptop and start running Minecraft like 1.14 or whatever, or 1.12.1 on there, and you hear the freaking Minecraft music and the graphics. Like,
oh my gosh, that would just make me cry.
And then you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, my wife, my kids.
It's all coming back.
It's all coming back. I remember my name was Scarlet Fury.
I think one of the moments that is going to stick with me for a very long time is I'm not going to spoil it because it's an ending, but it's the ending to Dust and Elysian Tale. I'm not going to spoil what happens in it, but that was, to this day, that is the only game that has genuinely made me well up. Like I was almost in tears at that moment. and that is the only game to this day that has had that particular effect on me.
I might answer this one too, because I've played lots of games, but I'd have to
You
say
sure?
yes, I am sure.
Okay.
I'd have to say for me, it'd be the time that I attempted a genocide route, killed Toriel, and then was like depressed for a week because of it. God, that game is just so good at making you feel bad for doing things.
For what game?
Undertale.
Oh, Undertale. Sorry.
Undertale.
Yeah.
Look, I haven't played Undertale. I don't know the character names.
Neither have I.
You are missing out. You should definitely do that.
I have the game, and I plan on recording it at some point, but I just haven't.
So if I'm missing out, you think I should go back in time and like tell my younger self to play it and force myself to get into RPG games and all that type of stuff and change the future drastically? Or do you think I should just go play it?
You should just go play it.
Okay, I'll try. That sounds kind of hard, but the other option is easier.
Okay.
Next question.
I think we're gonna just do one more, just because I want to give the two Europeans time to sleep.
Then I would like.
Wait, what's that?
I recommend the last question.
Sleep, never heard of her.
So, what's the most important thing for people to take away when it comes to pony games in the community?
That we need more of them.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That there is already a lot of them.
Wait.
That they're not all failures, and you
Yes.
can stop being so traumatized and PTSD from failures of games.
There are two empty slots on the stream. We need those filled up. Make more pony games.
Yes.
Now, I will note that for the record, those spots would have been filled if we had more answers. It's just those human beings are mildly antisocial, so they didn't want to come in here.
They're game devs. They didn't want to crawl out of their basement for this.
But I think if since that was such a fast thing to ask to answer, if you don't mind me kind of flipping that, what do you think is the most important to take away for up and coming game devs? Yes, Scarlett, would you like to speak?
Sure. I would say expect to make a lot of mistakes because the game idea that I have been developing sort of on the side here, that nobody really knows about aside from a few close friends, and my family, that idea, I had no idea what I was doing when I was jumping into, actually developing a game. And I had to do quite a bit of research, and then once I once I finally figured out roughly what I was doing in Game Maker Studio, it was I had to completely scrap the game at one point and start over, because what I had done was I had sort of just picked and choose tutorials to try and learn what I was going to make my game, and that did not work from the start. And even now, I'm still trying to figure that out. So, just don't be upset to just completely start over if you need to, but also to realize that, oh my gosh, I thought that would work. I guess it doesn't. Well, now it's back to the drawing board. What's another way I can approach this? It's just an inevitable thing that you're going to have to fight through.
Ansys?
I'm gonna say the most important thing is do whatever it takes to get to iterating as soon as possible. In practice, that means setting up infrastructure so it's easy to, like you make a change to your game, make it easy to then build it into playable state so that you can test it, you can give others. You can give it to others to test, and try to be like this in everything, right? Like instead of instead of making grand plans, or like you can make grand plans, but always think what's the fastest way to test your hypothesis, right? It's like, what if we had this game, I don't know, feature or game mechanic? Would it be fun? So try to think of the smallest, fastest, soonest test you can come up with to actually test it, rather than, because often people just debate these things, and debate does nothing because that's not a game. So yeah, like get to iterating. Like what was it? Fail fast, follow the fun. That was the motto of the Forerunner team.
Priscilla.
Well, apart from obviously that we need more of them.
No, this is advice. What is the most important thing you'd like to tell, like up and coming pony game dev?
I
Or
actually have
other game
stuff to
devs
say
out
to
there.
this too.
Be prepared is what I would say. It's very easy when you're playing a game to overlook exactly how many skills go into developing an actual game. You have obviously the art and the music and the coding, but you've also got everyone who has to model everything. You've got obviously the textures. You've got marketing that you might want to consider. You've got script if you have dialogue in your game. There's a lot of hats that need to be worn, and this particular path is not for the faint of heart. I will say that. So it's very easy to start a game and not realize just how much goes into it. So it's not easy. So
I would say
if you're wanting to make a game, be prepared to maybe pick up a skill or two that you didn't have before starting.
Or 20.
Or 20, or all of them. Learn all the skills.
Here's a funny thing. Here's a funny thing. If I knew what it would take to make Ashes of Equestria, I wouldn't have started. And I suspect many game projects are like this.
Yeah, because so many.
It's not at all obvious that you should know what you're getting yourself into.
I was going to say, so many game developers, they go into a project, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ambitious, ambition running through their veins, thinking, I'm going to do this, and this, and then they actually start, and they realize just how much they will have to. They realize just how much they will have to do to make this a reality, and then that project never gets finished. This is a very difficult hobby or career path, whichever you want to make it.
And that's true for any other art out there. Like, definitely it's so easy to bite off more than you can chew, but I think with like video games, with how many indie devs there are out there and how easy they make it look many times, don't be fooled. It's not easy, but it's possible.
I think we covered earlier that it's not a good idea to compare yourself to successful indies and think, I'm going to be like them, because your story is your own, and you're the only person who can tell it.
Yeah. As for what I would say to the up and coming or current game devs, take your time. There's no need to rush, because
take your time.
Yes, because a good game is better than a released game. I think there's one of the famous quotes from Shigeru Miyamoto.
A good game is good eventually.
Yes.
A delayed game is bad forever.
A delayed game is good eventually, but a rushed game is forever bad. and that's true.
And
Because
even if you do patch it later, you know,
I mean,
there's
come on, think about the PR nightmare that
Yeah.
Cyberpunk 2077 was.
Or
I mean, it
Fallout
was a joke.
76.
you always you will have the odd person that says, "Oh, they fixed it now," but you only get one chance to make a first impression, and that first
Yeah.
impression
Is everything.
counts. It counts for a lot.
It does. And so for just take your time, work at your own pace.
Yeah.
And I would even say, man, keep it to yourself and your close friends. The last thing you need to do is get a bunch of supporters, get a bunch of fans, because all that's going to do is put pressure on you to get it out and get it done and get it finished.
Yeah,
You don't want
been
that.
there. I've been there.
Nobody wants that.
What?
It is horrible to have the
So-
expectations of everyone else weighing on your shoulders.
Yeah,
Which is
steal a quote from Toy Story again. You can't rush art.
mhm.
No, you can't.
Which is partly why I haven't really given a lot of specifics about that game project that I've been kind of tinkering with in Games Maker Studio, because I don't
Yeah.
want everyone on my YouTube channel to be like, "Oh my gosh, you're making a game," and then put all this pressure on me and me never finish it.
But there are places where you can go in order to find help making those games, especially pony games, and talking about it without the weight of expectations of an audience. And that is in the description here. There is a link that says chat.pony.games, and that is a Discord server for pony game devs and players for them to come and see and help each other develop pony games.
I am also going to
On that point,
weigh in a little bit before you guys get
you go.
to. I'm also going to say for the game devs out there, be careful what you promise, because if No Man's Sky taught us anything, you promise a lot, everybody's going to expect it. So either don't promise anything at all, or don't even tell anybody about it, or keep it realistic. And then
Hype responsibly.
Pretty much.
Type responsibly. And I will say this as the guy who has to deal with the butt hurt of the fandom because so many other game projects did not hype responsibly. Please hype responsibly.
The other thing I wanted to say is don't feel like you have to sacrifice your vision for your game just because you get one or two people that are like, "Oh, I hate this." Personally,
You can tell them to shut up.
personally, as a player, part of what drew me to the game Helldivers 2 was the fact that like everybody was like, "Oh, you need to add this and you need to add that," and the game devs were just like, "No, we don't. If you want to play multiplayer, go play Tarkov." And that was something their CEO said. So, like, that kind of stuff, stick to your vision. You don't need to be every other game out there. You don't need to have everything everybody wants you to have if that's not what your game's going to be. And
Helldivers was multiplayer.
it is multiplayer co-op, not multiplayer PvP.
Ah.
But yeah, stick to your vision. Make the game that you set out to make. Don't make the game that everybody wants you to make.
Yeah.
That actually kind of reminds me of the Stanley Parable in a way. I think the new latest version of that actually kind of goes into that sort of critique path of what happens when you try to make a game that incorporates everything everyone expects or something. I don't remember the exact way it approached it, but there was some similar.
Yeah,
I guess
Stanley
ending
Parable
like
is
that.
Stanley Parable is very clearly about the nature of it is about the relationship between the player and the developer.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's the dichotomy between the artist and the enjoyer of the art.
I will say that a lot of players will very much appreciate if you know what you want to make, because there's a certain point where they see you adding all these things that everybody else is asking for, and then they're like, "So, like, who is this game for?" Because it's it's not for me anymore.
You try to make it for everyone, and it ends up appealing to no one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It just on a very tiny story, when we were doing public game testing at HarmonyCon, there was a young fellow that played it, and he was like, "Are y'all ever gonna add guns?" I'm like, "No." Like, "Well, you should add guns. I think you should add zombie ponies too. It'd be really cool to have guns and zombie ponies." And I was like, "If you want
Wrong game.
zombie ponies and guns, you can just go mod Call of Duty 3." like that there are pony mods for Call of Duty 3 zombies. Like, come on. And he's like, "No, but I want it to be an actual pony game." It's like, that is an actual pony game. It's ponies and zombies.
And one other thing is, you don't really, you are making a pony game, so you already have a niche. You already have an audience.
That is true.
Mhm.
Nameless, did you want to do the final pitching?
Yes. I'm gonna start from left to right because I feel like the last two have more to say. Scarlett, you get to go first. You got anything you want to pitch game wise?
The only real thing I have to say is that Earth of Goo mod, I will be working on that from time to time when I have cracks of time and motivation and such. I do plan on eventually finishing that, but given that the sequel to World of Goo is coming out soon, that's probably going to take up quite a bit of my time as soon as that's released. And then that other game project that I mentioned, I'm just going to keep it a mystery. You'll just have to see.
Percelion.
Define pitch.
Elevator pitch.
The elevator pitch.
Quick, easy.
So what would you tell if you got in the elevator with the CEO of a publishing company and you have to convince them to play and sell your game or to buy your idea? What would you tell them? This is a 2D platformer game about blah.
It's a 2D platformer run and gun, harkening back to classic NES games, is what I would tell them.
Okay. Saf.
Dimensional Shift is a sci-fi game about a pony that is out of place in the current world. We don't know where he's from. We find a secret facility and someone from his past there. And it's up to the player to find out, is this a friend or a foe? And can it mean the end of pony kind? It's also a sword fighter game.
You can tell who's been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
Ansys.
Well, I want to start by, like you already mentioned, chat.pony.games. It's a Discord all about pony games. So if you want to play some, come on over and ask around what pony games exist. We have documents and lists and links to all kinds of pony games. In total, like I wouldn't say hundreds, but more than 100 games of pony games exist. How many have you played, right? So you can do that. If you're interested in making pony games, the Discord is great too. Either starting your own, we can give you advice, guidance, and so on. If you want to join an existing project, there are dozens of people working on various pony games, and you can talk to them and like see like what project speaks to you the most. My own project, or our own project, we the Overmare, is Ashes of Equestria. Formerly, it was called Fallout Equestria, which is the name of the Fallout. Yeah, the fanfic, the ponyfic that started it all. That is so big and popular, and made us try to make a game about it. Yeah, if you want to help, like if you want that game to come out sooner, then join us. We are recruiting for all roles at all times. If you have no specific skills, you can still work as a tester. All that's needed is time, discipline, and willingness to learn. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I'm forgetting it. So whatever. I guess, yeah, like in the description of this video, or that will become the video or the stream, there will be a link to our website and a link to the Pony Games Discord too.
And for those of you on Twitch, if it's not showing up for you, then just check out the YouTube channel. It'll have all of the links in the description of the VOD that will be uploaded immediately after this is over. Other than that, for those of you that may or may not still be watching, if you enjoyed that and would like to see more of it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, follow on Twitch, and if you want to show further support to the channel, there is many different avenues. You can either do the Twitch sub, the YouTube membership. There's a Discord thing that I think might still be active. I also have a Patreon for those of you that are wanting to support on Patreon. The Discord is free to enter. A big thank you to my priest tier Patreons, Cameo Shadowness, Ice Crystal, Scarmex, and Trailblazer. Other than that, we're going to be doing the usual Lost Memory Second Chances tomorrow, and then Sunday we will have our Heart of Darkness campaign, and give me a second to pull up which one was next for An Alicorn Discusses. I believe it is the future of MLP, and that'll encompass both the fandom and the franchise. So keep an eye out for those. Other than that,
It's gonna be spicy.
I will probably do some random Twitch streaming throughout the weekend and following week. So if you're interested in that, then keep an eye out on my Twitch channel for that. Otherwise, everybody have a great evening, and don't forget to drink water.
You know what that means? Fish.
That's all there is around me. Just a speck of dirt I'll kill completely. The land around me needs a cure. A better life is what I'm fucking fighting for. My hatred for this world lives above the clouds.